Hello, world. My name is Daniel Marty Elkins, and you are listening to and watching Talk About It, the show in which we talk about the opioid epidemic, prevention, treatment, and all things in between. Today, I am joined by Miss Dionne Cornish, someone who is a personal mentor of mine in the field of prevention, and we are going to talk about it. Hello, Dionne. Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you.
So good to be here, Daniel. Nice to see you.
So, for our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about your journey through prevention to where you are today?
Of course, I can. My journey in prevention started with an opportunity through Brandywine Counseling and Community Services.
Mhm,
I was a prevention specialist with the Delaware Prevention Coalition,
mhm,
um, of which I hired you.
mhm.
Eventually, I moved up through the ranks to become the program manager of the coalition, which included community based organizations across the state. So, Bellevue, Western Neighborhood House, Dover Boys and Girls Club, First State were some of those partners. And we did tremendous work in primary prevention and making awareness to young people age 24 and under. Um, and then I left for a little bit. I moved with the coalition. Brandywine was no longer responsible for the coalition. So other agencies picked it up and they picked me up right along with it. And then there was a director position that became available at Brandywine Counseling, and they asked me would I be interested in it. So I went on back over there, went on back home, and I've been doing that since 2017 as director.
So, you are someone who has always been an advocate, continual learning in the field of prevention. So, why do you think the coalition model is important to the field of prevention in educating our communities?
I think coalitions work well with SAMHSA's strategic prevention framework. Um, there are different principles. They're cyclical. I hope I pronounced that word right. Um, and you start with the needs assessment in the community, and based on those assessments and partnerships with leaders in the community, you establish capacity. And then once you establish capacity and identify risk areas of that particular community, you work together in planning on how to come up with protective factors to offset those risks. And then once you've planned that, you implement your action steps, and then you evaluate was it successful or not. Was there a significant change? Was there no change? And you continue to do that. So it's not one size fits all. It depends on the community. It depends on the neighborhood. It depends on what county you are in the state. So I think being part of the coalition, it gives you an opportunity to sit on those prevention coalitions across the state. It makes your job easier because you have other leadership on the coalition and everybody kind of has the same vision. And I know that to be to prevent the onset of substance use for young people. And when you operate with a group of like minded people like that, the outcomes are amazing. The data is off the charts on how we're preventing kids, new substance use populations coming about. So I think it's great that we have that opportunity to collaborate and work together.
And you talked about data. So, what role should data play in the field of prevention?
It's it's a priority. It's a priority. With coalition and prevention work, and if you're receiving drug-free communities funds, it's data driven. So there are so many resources out there. The CDC has a prevention um, organization, part of their organization in prevention that provides a lot of data and statistics on the trends. You have monitoring the future. That's a national program, and they collect data. These organizations collect data on an annual basis. So you can look at the data, monitoring the future, for example, and you can look at California. and you can start seeing the trends. And you may want to look in the Midwest, and you see, oh, that drug is coming this way towards the eastern coast where Delaware is. And then you have data that's provided by the University of, they have an epidemiology work group that collects data for the youth risk assessment that they do in schools. So you can identify locally where students are doing self-surveys, self-questionnaires, and they're saying, this is a need for me. It could be substances, it could be violence, it could be uh, developmental identity development, it could be issues that they're having at school. Um, and this data can be compared to the national data and say, oh, you know what? We never thought about vaping. But vaping is a big issue for us, we're seeing, and vaping is a big issue across the country. So maybe that's where we need to focus our attention as far as universal risk that we can tackle.
I remember one of the times in which I was working for you, we were looking at sort of the statewide data, and there was data showing that smoking had been reduced. And everybody was celebrating the fact that
Mm-hmm.
smoking had been reduced. But what they didn't realize is that they hadn't added a question about e cigarettes or vaping yet. And so the students who were vaping
Mm-hmm.
were answering this question saying, no, I'm not smoking because I'm not smoking cigarettes. But you
Exactly.
didn't have the right question to get the right data to realize that then vaping had been a problem. And that's something that through our work, we sort of helped identify.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to sort of the field of prevention, you talked about sort of emerging drug trends. And I know that's something you always keep yourself updated on. What should the people at home, the parents, be aware of? Are there any current drug trends going on that people should know about?
Absolutely. Well, of course, marijuana is always one of those that pop up. And I had a conversation earlier today about marijuana in the workplace. And because it's now legalized, and you have them in Delaware, we have the for recreational use, and we have medicinal marijuana. What policies are fair? What policies aren't fair to have? And I reminded them that marijuana is still a Schedule 1 substance or controlled substance for the DEA, right up with heroin. So just keep that in mind. And now we're dealing with the opioid crisis. There's a lot of funding now that's going on, going into opioid treatment and prevention services. They now kind of separated where we have SUD, which is substance use disorder, to OUD.
Mhm.
Now it's opioid use disorder. And we're seeing what the challenges are for those who have this disorder and who are having trouble or not yet ready to go into treatment. Um, at one time, it was just heroin, and then fentanyl crept in, and we kind of partnered with Johns Hopkins and did some research and introduced fentanyl strips in our outreach for those who weren't ready. And it became successful. We had the Narcan, we had ample supply. We were connecting with organizations who trained us, and we would go out and train whoever wanted the training. And then this little beast named Zalazine has come on the scene. And the scary thing about it is that the effects of it are longer. The damage that it does to the body is horrible because there are open wounds that start to develop on people who use it. So it doesn't matter what route they use, if they snort it, smoke it, or inject it. I can shoot it in my arm and the wounds will come out on my leg. So it's really unpredictable. It's a veterinarian tranquilizer. The street name is Train. Um, and Narcan, it doesn't respond to Narcan because it's not an opioid.
So, to my understanding, what's occurring is that it's almost like people are cutting their opioids or their drugs with xylazine in
Mm-hmm.
order to increase the duration of the high.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, though, because they're cutting it with a non opioids,
Mm-hmm.
Narcan and naloxone, and all the opioid overdose reversal
Mm-hmm.
sort of agents that have no longer work.
Exactly. And it's not just for the extent of the sedation, is very profitable. So they're not just putting it in opioids, they're putting it in these fake pills, they're putting it in marijuana, they're, you know, there's a host of other substances that they're starting to put these things in. And what concerns me is that young people have discovered the dark net. Now you can, if you have access to a debit or a credit card or one of those ones that you buy, you can go online and have your fake pills delivered to your home, and you don't know what's in it. We used to, we did a thing together when we did work with the Philadelphia DEA, and they told us about the fake pills. We were just worrying about fentanyl now, but we're seeing from some of our partners in Kensington, in Baltimore, that they're seeing this across the board. And we're doing with our syringe services program, when people bring us their used syringes for new syringes, we're testing what's in these syringes. And 80% is like xylazine. There's no fentanyl, there's no heroin. So that's really scary when you look at a population of people. And from the recent data that was provided from University of Delaware, the opioid fatalities are the catch group now is mid 20 to 30s. So that's a whole generation. If we don't get a grip on this, that could be lost.
When you're talking about the changes in sort of demographics, that's one
Hmm.
of the things that you and I over the years have always sort of talked about is that addiction knows no barriers and boundaries. It
Hmm.
crosses every demographic group,
Absolutely.
every economic status, and it's something that we need to be aware of, sort of on all levels. So. What kind of services does Brandywine Community Counseling Services provide to the state of Delaware? If people are looking for help,
Hmm.
what kind of things can you offer to them?
With prevention, our catch group is kindergarten to age 24. So we offer evidence based prevention education. We work with young people to train them in the core competencies of prevention so that they're prepared when they do their peer to peer messaging. We work with college, one particular college in the state of Delaware, where we're training their psychology and social work freshmen. Um, and we hope that they will be part of our mentorship program to teach the young people. And that way, the message of hope still continues, the message of not engaging. On the treatment side of Brandywine, we've been in business for more than 35 years. So we do have a harm reduction piece, which is our syringe services program. That's a statewide program. We have our early intervention services, which does HIV, Hep C outreach and education. We have our unsheltered individuals outreach program now in Sussex County, and we have a new partnership with the little village down in Georgetown. You know, we do referrals and provide supportive services to them. And then we also have two large peer recovery centers. We call them our drop-in centers. So whether you're a customer of Brandywine Counseling or someone who lives in that community, or unsheltered, living in your car. We have some who are widowers. We have some women who are widowers and they just living in their cars. They can come there, they can get a hot meal, they can take a shower, they can wash their clothes, they can go in the food pantry. So I'm really proud of our outreach efforts. But I think what's near and dear to my heart are our youth and young adults because they are our future and they're eager, they're smart, they're eager to know. They do the research. I had an intern this summer. I gave her a final project. I said, okay, I want you to do the research and I want you to come up with a PowerPoint showing us how to create a youth coalition. And she knocked it out the ballpark because there are youth coalitions. You know, we've been to CACA. We see what the young people can do in the leadership roles that they have. Um, and just because we're a little state, you know, we got some pretty tough young people out here that are making great strides, and you work with quite a few of them.
Mhm. So when it comes to the issue of dealing with substance use disorder or opiate use disorder, um, there is a stigma, societal stigma that surrounds
Hmm.
just the issue itself. How can we begin the process of destigmatization in our communities?
It's funny you said that because that is a big issue. Um, I think storytelling is important. Um, I think if you came in with a certain bias about someone who uses opioids, and I said, well, you know what, Daniel, I just lost my baby to opioids. And I tell the story of how that came about. Gave them a good life. They went to college, everything, but inside was some pain. I think those who um, get caught in this dark space have a pain or a void that they haven't addressed or come to grips with. So I think part of it is just sharing your stories. We may be from two sides of the fence, but if I'm a mother and you're a mother, regardless of how you feel about it, I think you would feel a connection as a mother to lose someone you love. And then we also talk to seniors because sometimes seniors may be on a form of opioid. It could be a fentanyl patch. I just had surgery. I need to use a fentanyl patch. And you're living on your own and you forget, did I put my patch on today? And you put another patch on and you overdose. You know, don't assume that Narcan is just for those who are caught in substance use disorders. Don't make that assumptions. You know, what if your little one got a hold of your Percocet that you're taking because you had back surgery? Then you're gonna want that Narcan. So I think another part of that is not just the storytelling, but providing awareness with the facts, and have the data to support it. And I think in the field that we do, a lot of our demographics, a lot of our accountability of what we do and show the successes tells the story too. So we can go to a stakeholder if we want to get a buy-in from a stakeholder and say, we've been, like you said, with the cigarette smoking went down, but then the vaping went up. So what we did, Kick Butts Generation is supported by the American Lung Association, and we connected with them. I need you to train me. What are your young people learning? So I will refer some of my young people to be part of that, and they went down and were instrumental in getting some of the laws passed around that. So it you can't do it alone. Don't think that you can be in prevention and do it alone, and don't think that even if you have your own biases, when you're in this field long enough, you become more person centered and just see people for who they are at this moment in time.
So you're talking about some of the good work that youth can do through advocacy, and earlier you mentioned peer-to-peer messaging.
Mhm.
Why is it so important to empower the youth to tell their own stories?
It's funny you said that. I just did a presentation with young people, um, and they were polite. They were polite because here comes Miss Cornish with her, her little gray hair. So they were very polite, but they were hesitant to engage and ask questions and share what they see from their
Mm,
perspective.
mhm.
And I had a younger staff person with me who's a prevention specialist, and they knew the language, they knew what's on the street, and you just see them light up. So I think when it's someone, and that's why I like the partnership that I have with college students, because you can tell them the facts, you can tell them the risks, and they'll be more inclined to engage and disclose things that are going on in their lives.
Mm. And it, it ties back to one of the sort of core components
Mhm.
to the strategic prevention framework, and that's cultural competency.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
so for those who don't know what cultural competency is,
Mhm.
can you just tell our listeners a little bit about why it's important in the field of prevention?
I think it's important. when you're dealing with any human being, to be inclusive and not judge. I'll give you an example. When we were doing this, we identified a gap from the data. We identified a gap with youth of the LGBTQ plus community. And matter of fact, out of that, now they have that as part of that risk assessment that they do. And I don't go into anything lightly. When I identified the gap from a SWOT analysis that we did, I connected with the Transgender Training Institute in Philadelphia, and my staff. We went up for a 3-day training. We want to learn how to be advocates. We want to make sure that we're doing this correctly. And we came back and I partnered with AIDS Delaware, and we created an academy that we did in the summer. They learned from each other. We had guest speakers come in. And from that, they felt like they had a safe space. And because of that, they've created their own coalition, safe space that's still going on today. So we want to be sensitive and open to anyone that wants to come and learn. We don't care what you look like, what you've done. You're welcome. And this is a safe space, and we're caring people, and we're not going to judge. We're open, and I'm going to be transparent. I've been in recovery since '98, and I came from a good home, went to college. One of the people I was speaking of, but there was trauma that I never knew. People talk about trauma now. When back in my day, it was just like shake it off and get over it. But things that I didn't address. And part of my recovery journey was not just learning the 12 steps and getting a sponsor and all of that, but I had to get the counseling too. I had to get that mental health piece, and I learned to detach from things that weren't good for me, be people, places, or things. Um, and I've dedicated my life to doing this work and giving back because, like I said, the youth are my heart and my passion, and sometimes we dismiss them when they get out of that cute stage of kindergarten. As they get older, we kind of dismiss them and think that they can navigate this life on their own, but in fact, you need to provide more guidance and support to them in making good decisions.
Well, you are someone who has always provided guidance and support to me in the field of
Thank you.
prevention. You brought me into this profession, and I'm always grateful for that. And truly, truly, it was a joy to have you here on the show today.
Thank you.
If you had one final thought for the listeners and viewers at home that you'd like to share with them, one takeaway, what would it be?
It's the example that I use with primary prevention is because people are like, is that like putting your seatbelt on? Kind of, sort of, but no. Primary prevention is this. It's the upstream approach. And if you are standing at the base of a river, just laying on this side, laying on this, there's a river coming down, a stream, and you see someone coming down and they're screaming and they're hollering and they're drowning, and you pull them off and you're like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah. And then here comes another one, and the person on this side, and then they start coming down faster, and you call in the EMS because some are drowning, and then someone had the wherewithal and the sense to say, something's going on. Let me go upstream and find out what's going on. And you notice that there's a bridge that goes across the stream. It looks fine, but you notice there's a hole in it. And people don't recognize it crossing the bridge until they come up on it. So, with primary prevention, we're trying to fix the hole
Mm.
before someone falls through.
Well, it is so important to be the person in a community that helps catch, those before they fall.
Yes.
So thank you so much for
You're
being willing
welcome.
to come and talk about it. This has been Talk About It. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned.